Good morning. My name is Barbara Wright. My pronouns are she and her. And before I've had a cup of coffee in the morning, it sometimes. But anyway, welcome. We want to make sure that your electronic devices are silenced, please. And we want to take a few moments to welcome visitors and guests today. And we're glad that you're here. If you would like to receive communication about us, please complete the guest cards found on the credenza in the hallway. And also please return those to the greeters or leave them on the credenza in the offering basket. We welcome all people, young and old, families and singles. We embrace varying spiritual, religious, and philosophical beliefs. We welcome all colors, cultures, abilities, genders, and sexual orientations of the human family. We believe that we are enriched by the diversity of our community. And now I will bring Audrey, who will have announcements.
Hello, my name is Audrey. My pronouns are also she and her. Some announcements for you. We want to talk a little bit about circle dinners. Linda Cobb would be here to talk about this, but her son just got married last night, and so she is not here today. But she asked me to talk about it. I've participated in the circle dinners here at UUCP pre-COVID many times, and I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite things that we do as a community. Circle dinners are dinners that are organized outside of normal church hours with 6 to 8 people. There's usually, you sign up in pairs, whether that's a couple or 2 single friends. And if you don't have a friend to sign up with and you're just a single, Linda can match you up with someone else in the same situation. So don't let that stop you from signing up when this comes around. And you host usually at your own home, but if you're unable to host at your house, that's okay. You can host it at someone else's house. Sometimes there's someone in the group who's willing to host every time, so long as they don't have to do the cooking. And you could also, I've known one group that we were in, we actually had it here at the church, I think in the library one time, and we did it potluck style that way. It is kind of like a potluck. You rotate who brings what dish. So typically the host group cooks the main dish, and then one of the other pairs will bring a dessert, and one of the other pairs will bring like a salad or a side. And that's all assigned by Linda. She organizes that so you know what you're going to bring. And you really get to know, when you eat a meal with someone in their home, you really get to know them better. So it's a wonderful way to get to know new people in the congregation or get to know people you already know on a deeper level. So sign up at the front table or get in touch with Linda Cobb to participate in circle dinners. Okay, after the service today, there's a table out there with all kinds of delectable sweets on it. So head on over in the Sunday Sweets direction. We have a great selection. There's an apple bundt cake and peanut butter cookies, butter mochi and chocolate cherry, pumpkin torte and pumpkin pound, and a pineapple upside down. Grab a slice and have a seat. Our cakes and cookies can't be beat. And this is our monthly Sunday Sweets fundraiser for the church. If you're a guest, you do not have to pay. Just let us know and we'll get you a Sunday sweet for yourself. On Saturday, November 19th, that's this coming Saturday, between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Central Time, the UU Multiracial Unity Action Council will hold via Zoom an open discussion on the proposed changes to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws as proposed by the Article 2 Study Commission. To register and receive the Zoom codes, you can send an email to uumuac@gmail.com no later than Friday. So after the service, if you need to see that email and write it down, just come talk to me and I'll keep this. And then Bill, do you want to come up to talk about the Ship of Peace Veterans for Peace that's happening in December?
Veterans for Peace, you're right. Good morning. I learned last night that the Veterans for Peace Ship of Peace will be visiting Pensacola as part of their big loop around the Florida Peninsula. Veterans for Peace, we started running rallies, meetings, opposition to the war, a different war this time, in Iraq. We elected Scott Satterwhite president, me vice president at that time. And Scott still is president because we never saw any reason to change. There are pictures of the Ship of Peace, which has been sailing around one place and another since about 2003. It has Veterans for Peace on the sail. As I said, I think it's against nuclear weapons. We're against, Veterans for Peace, of course, is against all wars. Scott Satterwhite, let me make sure I got all the items in there. Yes, we're trying to organize for this visit rallies, meetings, speakers. So if you know anyone who wants to join in that with us, let us know. I will tell the manager of this voyage, and we will, Scott and I will anyway, be attempting to organize some meetings, probably down at the pier wherever they dock. I don't know yet. Wonderful. I think that's what I have to say, but I hope you join us, and I will leave you more. And as I say, you can see the pictures of the ship that's being passed around. Thank you so much. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We're setting up for a Eucharist. When I left the Episcopal Church, I wondered if I could do without a Eucharist, and it's been hard. But I'm very, very happy to see it being done here.
Thank you, Bill. Don't forget this. So instead of some centering music, we're going to do a responsive reading. You can remain seated because it's supposed to be words of meditation. So if you'll take out your blue hymnal, it is number 727. The Bread We Share. Is this gray? That's teal. All right, y'all, let's get like that dress that goes going around on Facebook where they're like, what color is this? Okay, well, take out the dark blue or gray or whatever color you consider this to be hymnal, the older traditional one. And in the back where the responsive readings are, number 727, The Bread We Share. I'll read the part that is not italicized if you guys will respond with the italicized part. The bread we share this day is sacred. The friendship we share this day is sacred. All gatherings when people meet and touch celebrate life. The laughter we share this day is sacred. Joy and sorrow that rise from love for springs of life. The stillness we share this day is sacred. In this peace is thankful for the spirit which nurtures life. For bread, for friends, for joy and sorrow, for the comfort of quietness. Let us ever be grateful and caring. And now I'm going to have Barbara light our chalice. Oh, good, it's lit. Fantastic. And I will say our opening words. For opening words today, this is by the way, y'all, I've done a lot of things in this church over the years as a member, but this is the first time I've ever organized a service. So I didn't realize that until last night, and then all of a sudden that made me nervous. So hopefully I don't mess it up. I feel like I've done everything, but I haven't done this until now. Our opening words, when I was researching, I found lots of different words about bread communions in the UU tradition, and I decided just to take a little bit from each of them. So this is kind of words adapted from various UU resources that I found on the Worship Web Library. The ritual of breaking bread together is one that has been shared by the human family in various forms for millennia. Giving thanks for the harvest, a prayer that the earth will sustain life once again. And so it is that we come to gather around this table, our communion table. This ritual connects us in ways that we can only begin to know through time and space, to our history, to all the people who have looked into each other's eyes across a table through the years, to the earth and the cycle of life. I'm going to ask you all to rise in body or spirit and recite our covenant with me, which will be on the screen behind me. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And you can remain standing for our first hymn. The choir is going to come up and lead us in a hymn in your grayish blue hymnal. Number 406, Let Us Break Bread.
So now is the time for our offering. This church and its work are financially supported solely by contributions from our members and friends. Thank you for your generous assistance. And now would be a time to put your joys and sorrows in the offering basket. Thank you.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of
All right, we have quite a few joys and sorrows today, which is wonderful to share with our community in a communion service. From Dolly Bertholet. Dolly is grateful that everyone has been checking on her and offering moral support this week. Her Watchman surgery went well Wednesday, and she's recovering fine alone at home, except for annoying ongoing throat pain and congestion. In 45 days, another sedated procedure will determine whether the Watchman device implanted next to her heart can release her from the dangerous Eliquis drug and protect her from future strokes. So here is hoping for success in that department. And we have a sorrow from Marcy Moreland. Marcy's sorrow is for the death of her friend Linda Kintzing and for her family. Linda and I knew one another for 58 years. Although we lived on opposite ends of the country most of those years, we always kept in contact and had some wonderful in-person reunions when I would visit New York. She is joyful though because Linda was surrounded by her family and thanks to being in hospice care was free of pain and departed this realm peacefully. We have a joy from Laura Keith King. Heather and Daniel Cobb got married here in this very room yesterday. They met here at our church, so it's very special for the church, and that's why we have our dance floor still out. And Joe Vinson has asked that we please keep the family and loved ones of Neil Berger in your hearts and prayers. He was our daughter Tori's friend and former castmate, and he left this world far too soon. And from James, we have a joy that my boyfriend from Illinois is coming to see me for my birthday, and I'm on AB honor roll. Also, we have a mama dog and 5 puppies at home. So there is a lot of joy in the household. It's wonderful. And we will go ahead and light one more candle to represent all of those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken but are deeply felt. All right, so it is time for the message part of the service, and it's a communion service today, so usually that means that the speaker doesn't have to speak that much, so good. But I offered to lead the service because I was brought up in a traditional Christian background, Roman Catholic, and communion is a weekly part of their services, and it's something I always enjoyed. But I'm no longer consider myself a Christian, and certainly don't attend Catholic church. So the communion services we have in the Unitarian Universalist tradition have always been kind of special to me, and I've always enjoyed them. And then the breaking of bread together and the sharing of food together is also something that I find special and community building. And so I wanted to make sure when they were looking for service leaders, I said, I'll do the bread communion. I like the bread communion. And then I thought, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But I wanted to make sure it happened, and so here I am. And in doing my research for this service and trying to figure out how I would write something to express my own personal feelings about communion in general and how it may evoke a Eucharistic sentiment when you see a table full of bread and you know you're going to be sharing it with other people in the room. I think from the UU perspective, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that, although it can if you like that. And I found a service from the UU Church of Elgin, Illinois, that had been recorded during the pandemic and was available online for me to listen to. And they had a number of people from their congregation who had written short blurbs and shared them at that service. And one of those people, his name's Tom Durkin, and he has a very similar background to me and had everything he wrote was something I could have written myself. And so I said, well, why reinvent the wheel? I'm just going to read what he wrote since it's perfect. So I'm going to take just a moment to read that excerpt for you here today because I think it sums up my feelings perfectly. So these are not my words, but they are my feelings. The thing I like about bread communion is that it reminds me of the Christian roots of both Unitarianism and Universalism. Not because of the miracle of transubstantiation of my Catholic upbringing, in which the elements of bread and wine are transformed into the body and blood of Christ during a ceremony, but rather because it represents a communal meal to which we are all welcomed to share. If you have any background in Christianity, you're probably aware that the sacrament of communion is seen as a reenactment of the Last Supper on the night before Jesus was crucified, but that isn't the only meal that we hear about Jesus participating in. Unlike today, where we often find ourselves eating alone or on the run, in the world in which Jesus lived, mealtime was a communal affair. More importantly, who you ate with said a lot about your place in society. And Jesus ate with everyone, including sinners and tax collectors. He not only ate with them, but used the meals as teaching opportunities. In UU terms, this reminds me of our first and third principles: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. The religious leaders at the time didn't like this, though, because they saw it as an affront to social norms. But as a good liberal, Jesus stood in opposition to the norms that marginalized so many as unfit to eat with. I have to say, though, that while the idea of everyone being welcome at the table, including sinners and tax collectors, sounds like the right thing to do, it can still be very uncomfortable. Take feeding the hungry. Most of you know that feeding the hungry is very important to me, so a number of years ago, I was quite excited about my first opportunity to serve at the Dignity Diner in Chicago. Dignity Diner is it's a food kitchen, essentially, where they're set up restaurant style. It felt like I was doing something very important as we prepared the food, set the tables, and then served the guests. But then the coordinator told all the volunteers to join the guests at their table. My level of discomfort rose dramatically. What would I have to talk about with these people? How could I eat near the ones that smelled bad? Would they think I was lording my good fortune over them? But I stepped out of my comfort zone and I joined the guests. What I learned was that some people like to talk and others don't. Some liked what we were eating and some would have preferred something else. Some were Cubs fans and some were Sox fans. Some were healthy and some were suffering, either physically or emotionally. In other words, all the things that I could find at a meal with my peers. It was even possible to focus on the meal and the guests in spite of some of the odors. I learned that it's easier to get to know people that are living in a different life by sharing a meal with them, making it easier to see them as people rather than as guests or clients to be pitied because they need help. I've tried to remember this as I continue my volunteer work in feeding the hungry. It still often requires me to step outside of my comfort zone, but it also usually makes the experience much more meaningful. I love being part of a spiritual community that honors the example Jesus set in his life more than the dogma adopted about him in the centuries following his execution. But I also know that for some, any ceremony that even hints at being Christian can bring forth negative feelings. So I want to share the following quote from Reverend Scotty McLennan's book, Christ for Unitarian Universalists, which, if you're a current or former Christian and you're UU, is a great book, by the way, on viewing bread communion through a UU lens. Communion is not just a matter of ingathering and unity. It should also nourish us for an outpouring of love into the world. Jesus always did both. He gathered people to break bread together, and then he sent them out to feed and clothe and heal and comfort others. I'm proud to say that while we only break bread together during service once a year, we do pour love into the world here at UUCP through our donations to Man a Food Bank, but also in the many ways that we feed each other as a community, as a church community, and as individuals. And not just feed with food, but feed, clothe, heal, comfort, feed all the different things that the human body needs and mind. So as we share this bread communion together, let us remember that a UU communion is a ritual celebration of our commitment to the first and the third principles. And I'd like to invite you all now to, at your own pace, come on up to the front. I'm going to introduce and thank the bakers of our various types of bread here and let you know what the options are. And I would encourage everybody to try all of the options if you would like to. They're just going to be served in bite-sized portions, so it's not a huge, you're still going to need to eat lunch after this service, okay? I want to thank, in particular, 3 members of our church that were gracious enough to do some work outside the service and bring loaves of bread today. I approached Michael Newcomb and asked him if he'd be willing and interested in making some bread, and he said, I don't know that I've ever made bread before, but I'll give it a try, because, you know, Michael, he'll step up and try just about anything. He said, I'm going to try. I said, well, would you make a bread that maybe is evocative of your cultural past or something that you really like, something that represents you? And so he said, well, I'll try a rye bread because, you know, rye bread's good in German. And that is what is our first darker bread here, and I believe it might be his first attempt at bread. So that is exciting that we get to share that with him. So, and then I thank you, Michael. Then I also approached Jack Comstock, because everybody knows if you need something baked, you got to talk to Jack. He's the man. So when I asked him if he would make something that represented himself or that he thought he would particularly enjoy, he said he wanted to make a flavorful bread, which I thought was great. And so our second selection there is a dilly bread. It's a dill bread. Should be very flavorful. And then, because Jack always goes above and beyond, he also baked a plain white bread next to it in case you're not into flavors. So we have plain white as well. And then he went even further and reached out to Patty Underwood and said, Patty, I know you've made a gluten-free bread. I don't know anything about gluten-free. And I was going to cover that, so I hadn't even asked anyone to tackle something like that, because it is somewhat challenging to make gluten-free bread. But Patty has made a gluten-free bread, so if you're gluten-free, the one that's in the bowl with the white covering is a gluten-free option. And then I had thought, well, you know, we have some vegan members of our congregation, a lot of vegetarians, but a few vegan members, so I want to have an option so they're not left out too. So I've also purchased Food for Life's vegan gluten-free bread that's me, y'all. If anytime you ask me to bring something to a potluck, it's coming from the store. Okay, so, but we want to include everybody. And what I love about this display that we have is that it really represents how different everyone in our congregation is, and everybody, you ask them to make bread and they all came up with something a little bit different, and yet it's the same. So go ahead and come on up and take one of these little cups, and Barbara and I are going to glove up and serve the bread so that we're not having a bunch of hands reaching in. We normally pass baskets around, I think, in a traditional setting, but it's flu season, COVID's still out there, so we're not going to do that. And Jack is going to provide us with some lovely drum music while we move around the sanctuary. Yes, where are they? Oh, they're back here. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. Would you like some of this also? birthday. Would you like a free option? As you eat your bread, I would invite you to think about the members of our community that put their love and care and time into making it and serving it, and how grateful we are to have the community that we have here at UUCP. And then in just a moment, once everyone's done with their bread, I'm going to invite the choir to come up for our closing hymn.
In a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, and our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts lives within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Thank you. And choir, if you'll remain up here for just a moment, it's been brought to my attention that someone has a birthday. So we're all going to sing happy birthday to, is she in here? Hannah Laura. Oh, you're right. You're right dead center. I was like looking all around you. I'm so sorry. To Hannah Laura right here. It is her birthday. So can you help us, choir?
Happy birthday.
And our closing words are adapted from Michael Tino's A Thanksgiving Communion. Seeds scattered on fertile ground are warmed by the sun and fed by the soil. They sprout and grow, producing great fields of grain. The grain is harvested and ground into flour and shipped across the nation. The flour is mixed with yeast and water and salt and kneaded, allowed to rise, baked into bread. The bread is broken in a sacred space of this worship and shared in the community of love. The breaking of bread is an ancient ritual of community and memory, celebrated in many different traditions in many different ways. And today, as we approach the American celebration of Thanksgiving, we break bread together to celebrate the abundance of the harvest, the hard work of all who make our lives possible, and the community that gathers here to worship together. These loaves were baked with love, abundant love, love that multiplies all that is around it. As you took a piece of bread and ate it, you took into you the love of this community. As you were nourished by the bread, hopefully it brought to mind those things and people which nourish your spirit and mind. We offer you the bread of community. Thank you. Go in peace.
Thank you.